New lore has recently been revealed hinting at why Constantin Valdor departed the Imperium to found his own empire within the Webway. This is a huge revelation, connecting a new Horus Heresy event directly to what is quite probably the most unique, intriguing story arc in modern 40k. Dan Abnett, the author, has even been quoted as saying the third Bequin novel yet to release, that which continues the story of the King in Yellow, will contain galaxy-altering ramifications. Considering the end of the second Bequin novel, Penitent, more or less stated Constantin Valdor is the King in Yellow, this is a huge cliffhanger for any Valdor or even general 40k fans. And so if you aren't up to date with the King in Yellow, check out this video on our YouTube page or linked in the description below. But for now, we're going to not only cover the new lore which likely led Valdor to become the king, but also the man's life, leading up to that fated realization. Be warned, there are a couple of side plots within the End and the Death Volume 3 we're going to discuss in this video, but nothing that will spoil that novel for you. This is going to be awesome, I think you're going to love it guys, so strap yourself in and let's discuss some lore. Plus stick around to the very end as there's a cheeky snippet from End and the Death Part 3 which will surprise and shock any 40k fans familiar with the Bequin series and King in Yellow. He is at once the paragon of an order magnitudes greater than even the Angels of Death, but in spite of that fact has retained a significant portion of his humanity, unlike the others of his order. From the Emperor's most prized creation to the Imperium's Captain General, then finally the King of a hidden realm in the 41st millennium. Let's discuss now the life and rebirth of the greatest custodian to ever draw breath, Constantin Valdor, first of the 10,000. During the days of Old Night, that era ancient Terra was but another backwater planet steeped in the repulsive power of dark sorcery, and home to the most brutal acts one mortal can enact upon another. The child who would become Constantin Valdor was born. Those closest to the Emperor in these forgotten days, they knew the Perpetual who would one day become Emperor of all mankind, poured an enormous amount of resources into locating Valdor as an infant, likely also slaying his parents in the process. But what did the Emperor, or even Malcador, foresee which made this infant so crucial? Of course, the being who holds the rank of Captain General and head of the Custodian Guard must be an exceptional individual to begin with. But this was not the case for Valdor. He was no hero or vaunted champion. He was but a child. So what was so important about Valdor specifically that he would be the first of the 10,000? We'll get into that topic later in the video. For those of our listeners who are unaware, the mortal who would become Constantin Valdor was crafted into the first custodian by the Emperor of Mankind himself. If he is truly still alive in the 41st millennium, this makes Valdor approximately 10 to 11,000 years old, not accounting for any warp or webway time distortion, which in itself could mean he is far younger or even more ancient than even that. The Emperor's most elite fighting force, the Custodian Guard, otherwise known as the 10,000, were led by the dauntless Constantin Valdor, from the Age of Strife to the breaking of the Siege of Terra. During these centuries, Constantine as well as Malcador the Sigillite were the Emperor of Mankind's closest companions and even confidants. Lao Tzu, the famed Chinese philosopher, once said, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." A quiet, stoic observer, to cow his enemy, Constantine would not rely on his enormous physical bearing, or even the gene-crafted terror his very presence exuded. His bravery and wit were respected, equally by those who loved him as well as those who wished him dead. No, the source of fear or awe his name would conjure was based solely on the man's quietly confident demeanour, paired with his ability to deal death at less than a moment's notice. It is true that when undergoing the secretive process of creating his custodes, the Emperor ensures that knitted within the fibre of their being is duty to himself above all else. No matter the stakes or sacrifice, whether their own or another's, an Adeptus Custodes will always prioritise the Emperor's well-being first. This does not, however, mean that Custodian Guard, even the first as Valdor is, do not feel regret, or dare I say, a pang of loathing for what was done to them in order to become what they are today. Valdor has more than once wondered what his life entailed prior to his being collected by the Emperor's servants. He even muses on whether, given the choice, he would have elected to become the first of the 10,000, or if he'd have preferred a mortal life instead, not one which flayed his humanity from his very being. An intriguing thought by the individual who, out of all the Emperor's loyal trillions, is one of two beings closest to him. Now, do we really know whether the dour qualities of the custodian order are owing to the process of their creation? Or is it in fact because these are the affectations of Valdor himself, that the fibre of his being was utilised to create all other custodian guard? We know full well the process to create a custodes is remarkably complex, and even have it on good authority that were the Imperium to manufacture their kind in the way they do more numerous troops, such as the Astartes, that the entire Imperium could not hope to provide enough resources to do this while simultaneously sustain its empire. That is a very clear-cut statement on how valuable each custodian is, especially considering the rate of which complex, valuable weapons, vehicles, and even starcraft are manufactured daily by the various branches of the Imperium. But think about this also. If a Space Marine is implanted with their Primarch's unique gene seed, who's to say that Valdor is not the Primarch of the Custodian Guard in a similar way? Something to muse on anyway, and by no means a point that has been confirmed within the lore. Let me know in the comments if you believe that could be possible though. And so we know that Constantin Valdor was the first Custodian Guard within existence, and that he maintained the title of Captain General since the earliest days of Unity. Even as the Imperium grew in size from one single territory to a world and then a galaxy-spanning domain, Constantin Valdor's title would not change. Captain General. It is a nondescript rank, as he even states in his own words, for a position of prodigious influence and power. But when we are introduced to the inner workings of Valdor's mind and personality, we discover some truly intriguing insights. You see, the Emperor may have raised his custodes, especially Valdor, to operate many planes of order above mundane humanity, even compared to any other martial specialist within the galaxy. But this came at a cost, a steep one. You see, since the moment he opened his eyes after being transformed into the gene-enhanced man he is, Valdor remembers every moment in eidetic clarity. Every second he has experienced as Captain General can be recalled instantaneously from the labyrinthine workings of his gene-enhanced brain, though there is a time prior to this era of his life that Valdor claims are half-memories. As they are upon the verge of coming into focus, they are snatched away, destined never to fully corporealize within his mind's eye. Valdor is distinctly aware he was robbed of making his own choice as to whether to become what he is now. Nevertheless, an overriding fealty to the Emperor of Mankind is so ingrained within every fibre of his being that he could never bear ill will towards his king for doing so. Valdor has even admitted to himself that thoughts such as this are brief before his unnatural biological programming swarms through his consciousness, warding away any such concepts and replacing them instead with the obsessive need to better himself. This is experienced by each custodian, not just Valdor, as a Loctite mania to protect both the Emperor as well as the Imperium, a duty that demands perfection in all they do. Though to the eyes of any other than a custodian or perhaps a Primarch, each of the 10,000 seem flawless in every way. Their movement is so exact, feline in its gracefulness, and their physique is many times more impressive than even a Space Marine's. Though to the custodians themselves, they strive for ever greater excellence, a lofty goal which racks each with the obsessive need to fulfill it. The mind of a custodian, even Valdor, is so intent on attaining this exquisite state in the Emperor's name that they experience a constant obsession to perfect themselves, an overpowering pull which clouds every other thought out of their minds during periods of downtime or, as we stated prior, during times their minds may linger a little too long on their past lives. This could be tending to their armor's maintenance, mastery of their weapons, or maintaining the condition of their bodies. The true irony of this solitary existence every custodian is locked within is that they are all unable to draw a moment's satisfaction from their own achievements. There is of course fulfillment in a job well done, but there exists no vanity or true sense of superiority as a Thunder Warrior or Space Marine may feel. Again, this facet of custodian character marks Constantin in a particular way. Within the novel Valdor, Birth of the Imperium, he is forced to slay Primarch Ushitan of the Thunder Warriors, a man he has known since the earliest days of Unity. However, on his deathbed, Valdor kneeling beside him, Ushitan compares his life to Constantin's. He claimed to have experienced true life compared to the unfeeling, passionless existence Valdor was crafted to endure. And finally, Ushitan asks Valdor, "What more can the Emperor take from you that he hasn't already?" Following his mercy dispatching of the Primarch, Valdor answers, "Nothing at all." This lack of free will was destined to change, however, for the Emperor of Mankind, that same king, tyrant, father, who had at once damned but also uplifted Constantin, would gift to Valdor a weapon of such tremendous ability that it would almost transmogrify the man. This weapon was forged by the Emperor's own hands and was called the Apollonian Spear. And so now that you are aware of the inner workings of Constantin Valdor's mind, this will aid you in appreciating both the waking torture as well as profound comprehension the Apollonian Spear exacts upon the Captain General. You see, the Apollonian Spear was not simply a powerful blade. Yes, its keen edge certainly had the ability to skewer even Terminator plate effortlessly, whilst its mounted boltcaster coughed explosive death at a rate far more deadly than any typical Custodes Guardian spear. But the true power of this wondrous creation was the effect it instilled upon its wielder once they had drawn an opponent's blood with the spear's blade. You see, as soon as the Apollonian Spear pierced the flesh of any other, be they Astartes, man, demon, or even machine, instantaneously the bearer, Constantin, would be oppressively flooded with its victim's entire life's trauma. The heart-rending agony conveyed by this weapon would be enough to drive one insane in the least, but in the hands of Valdor, one whose transhuman crafting has left him less inclined to such emotional states, while still mind-bendingly agonizing, it is a means of illumination, a way to ensure that one of the most proficient killers in the entire galaxy maintains an anchor within reality, that he is reminded of the lives he so expertly ends. And this really is a fascinating aspect of Valdor's overarching plot, as well as evolution of his character. For without a tool so powerful as this, one which surpasses or undermines the Emperor's gene programming, Valdor's personality would likely not evolve at any great rate. It's just the nature of a custodian. He is without a doubt the Emperor's most dutiful servant, with the basis of that loyalty intertwined within every fibre of his handcrafted being. However, the Apollonian Spear, granted to him by that same master, ever so gradually grants Constantin the ability to begin thinking for himself. That is, some minor sense of autonomy. Now remember this evolving narrative because it links in directly with the new lore we're about to unfurl and dissect. But very brief explanation for those who have not read or listened to the novel Bequin Penitent, and massive spoiler for the end of that book. While ceaselessly attempting to hunt down and locate the secretive, powerful King in Yellow, Bequin, who is essentially in the service of Inquisitors Eisenhorn and Ravenna, is instrumental in obtaining a book which is said to contain the true name of the King in Yellow. The book is written in an extremely difficult to decode cipher, but once it has begun to be unravelled, it is apparent that the entire book is a name, containing several thousands of names or titles, eerily similar to a custodian's tradition of obtaining names for each victory or act of valour committed, wouldn't you say? The last two words within the book read Constantin Valdor, and unfortunately that is where the story ends, ready for part 3 to be released in the future. Hopefully soon now, Dan Abnett has completed his works within the Horus Heresy series. Okay, so what must be stressed about the king is that he has been working in cahoots with agents of chaos as well as the Imperium for millennia, possibly even all the way back to the aftermath of the Horus Heresy. Regarding the chaos sects he works with, he has been known to deplete them of resources whilst promising them much in return, only to renege and destroy them utterly once he has achieved his own ends. He is no friend to the Imperium. In fact, only a select few know of his whispered existence. When Bequin is transmuted from real space into the webway, she beholds the King in Yellow's glorious realm, as well as his armies of winged, gene-enhanced soldiery, and is utterly shocked by an horizon full of golden space vessels he has accrued, a galaxy-conquering force. But why would Valdor, of all people, take on this alter ego? To what end does this serve his duty to the Emperor? Well, within the End and the Death Part 3, we first catch a glimpse of the moment which may just have triggered this epiphany of sorts within the Captain General. For those who have followed Valdor's character arc within the Heresy series, I anticipate a lot of people, when imagining Valdor as some sort of mini-emperor within another dimension, would believe this out of character. And yes, you're completely correct. But think for a moment how the Emperor's demise affected Rogel Dawn, for instance. His Primarch son was so distraught at his failure to protect his father that he fell into a depression-like stupor, which he even passed onto his gene sons. But in the case of Valdor, every fibre of his superhuman being is crafted by the Emperor to protect him. Imagine how this affected the psyche of a man that had endured for so long, experienced the numberless horrors, as well as the evolution throughout the Age of Strife, Unity, Great Crusade, then Heresy, and had now lost his entire purpose. The depths of Valdor's fall likely would have been far deeper than even Lorgar experienced after his condemnation by his father at Monarchia, and we know what that drove him towards. There are two moments within the End and the Death Part 3 which directly correlate to Valdor's transmogrification into the King in Yellow. Firstly, and less revolutionary lore, occurs when we as the audience experience the fallout of the Heresy's conclusion, the lasting effect on all involved. Valdor, solemn and solitary in his quarters, stares at the Apollonian spear, reflecting whether all he has learned from the mystical Apollonian spear are lies, though he knows they surely all are true. Perhaps in this moment, after everything that has occurred, the loss Valdor is feeling, he obviously would have a lot of conflicting emotions. He will be lamenting his king's passing, yearning for revenge, but also, I believe, on the road to revelation, wherein he will soon compartmentalize the loss he has experienced and harness his duty to both the Emperor and Imperium. I believe this is what will drive him to leave Terra. Secondly, and finally, the moment which seems to have set Valdor on his path to becoming the King in Yellow was during a duel with first captain of Horus's sons, Abaddon. Shortly prior to Valdor and Abaddon clashing aboard the Vengeful Spirit, we experience Erebus convincing the first captain that he must access the gifts of chaos to overcome the force of Custodes assaulting their position. So we see yet another instance of Erebus marking a traitor Astartes for greatness. He has imparted upon Abaddon and his Justarian a type of chaos empowerment, enough for them to stand against Valdor and his companions. It is during this melee that Abaddon catches Valdor's perfectly executed thrust using the Apollonian spear. Abaddon impossibly catches and then grips onto this notorious blade. So empowered is the first captain that this abrupt action causes Valdor to suddenly stop, jolting forward like a whip crack, as is explained within the novel. Bemused as he is, Valdor spies blood trickling down the future War Master's left hand. He has pierced the flesh of his opponent, and you know what that means. Rather than experiencing the true name of some chaos entity, or the hate-filled loathing you would no doubt expect from the likes of Abaddon, instead Valdor is utterly horrified to find a future of unending warfare, a galaxy in flames. Through the blood of the first captain, a being who at this time is flowing with dark energy gifted by the Pantheon, the Long War unfurls on a macro-galactic scale. Worlds burn and chaos is sown throughout the material plane. So far, since the beginning of what would be called the Horus Heresy, Valdor has slain countless thousands of warp-fueled creatures via the Apollonian Spear, and so has the weapon imparted upon him dark, forbidden knowledge, some of the darkest secrets the Chaos Pantheon covered closely. With his eidetic memory, Valdor has learned ancient lore more terrible than most sorcerers could muster, even with a lifetime of study. Unveiled to him for years now are secrets too terrible for any mortal to possess. So do we see Valdor not only struggling with the loss of the Emperor, but he also possesses the arcane knowledge he can bend to his will as the King in Yellow. Knowledge to create his grails, his flying Primarch creations, even his abode within the City of Dust. But more importantly, we finally understand the motivation for Constantin Valdor to depart from the Emperor's side. Now Valdor is so disgusted by the vision he is gifted that he physically recoils from Abaddon. But this isn't all. He sees a spear tip cutting through a united chaos force, a thing far scarier than the minions of one deity, a legion of black. Now for our little secret ending. Famed remembrancer Kirill Sinderman, a capable man we know already will live for another 2 millennia or so after ascending to the rank of Inquisitor and ally to the Grey Knights, makes ready to leave the library in which he's conversed with Ahriman for the last couple of novels. Speaking to the archivist within the library, he asks her name, and do you know what she replies? Her name is Lillian Chase. Now there's a few plot lines that mingle between The End and the Death Part 3 and The King in Yellow, so if you'd like to learn more about the King in Yellow and the inquisitorial agents investigating his secret realm, watch this video for full and up-to-date lore so you're ready for the last novel in the Bequin series. And what about earlier when we mused on what made Valdor so special? How did the Emperor or Malcador even realise he existed, or his potential? Well, considering the current age of Constantin Valdor in 40k, that is some 10.5 to 11,000 years old, there's one intriguing possibility. Yes, of course, there are ways to sustain oneself in the setting, especially considering he seems to have dwelt in the webway for so long. But what if Valdor was chosen, and in fact was able to even be located when he was born, because he was born a perpetual? This theory can be further supported during The End and the Death Part 3, when Valdor has experienced such horrific injuries that Dawn himself is amazed the man is still alive, let alone standing. Let me know if you think that's a possibility or not in the comments, or over on our Discord. Bit of food for thought anyway, guys. Supporting us on Patreon nets you free stuff and helps us to create more content, and there's 3 tiers of support available. If you'd like to show your support, just follow the link in the description to see what's available there. If you're looking to purchase Warhammer models, then doing so through our link to Gap Games is another way to help us so we can make more content and purchase more gear for the channel. Likewise, if you'd like to be a part of the community as we grow, then head on over to Discord where we can have a chat about the lore or hobbying. And of course, if you're enjoying our content, please consider hitting the like, notification and subscribe buttons. This is a really excellent free way to support the channel and tells YouTube's algorithm to share our videos with more people. Until next time, take it easy and have a good one.